time for Type 40, your Doctor Who podcast from the Spacebook on the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hadley, Birmingham's King of the Geeks, your regular host, sometimes irregular host and guide to the Whoniverse here on the free-speaking, big-thinking show for everyone, whenever and wherever and however you started your journey with the Doctor. We talk about it all on this show. 15 incarnations of the Time Lord, 61 years and counting. Explore as much as we can muster with us here on Type 40. And here we are, right up to date on this one, covering recent news about a decades-long mainstay of the Doctor Who fandom itself. Speaking of which, we've got one right here about to join us on the show. It can only be Mr. Simon Horton.
Well, hello. How lovely to be here. And yeah, we're talking about probably my second favourite subject after Doctor Who, and that's Doctor Who fandom. What could be better?
Yeah, because you've been up your neck in it for decades, haven't you?
Yes, yeah. Well, on and off, and on a sort of sliding scale. Yes, it's 1983. It was in 1983 I first at the Doctor Who celebration at Longleat on that April weekend. How many years ago now? And it was at that weekend that I first became aware of Doctor Who fandom. It's as simple as that. I genuinely didn't realise prior to that weekend, really, that there were other Doctor Who fans out there that were as dedicated as I was. I just thought there were people that watched the show. I genuinely thought I was the only fan in the world, and boy, did I have a wake-up call that weekend, but in a good way, because suddenly I felt I was part of a tribe, and I've never looked back. In various forms, I've been part of fandom ever since.
You had no idea that it was so much bigger on the inside, a bit like the new TARDIS. Are you used to this one yet, mate? Is it growing on you?
No, it's too white, it's too big, it's too plain. It'll grow on me.
Happily, we can do our best to fill it up on this edition of the show, to do our level best by bringing in our friend and co-host, starry-eyed girl Sarah Graham again. Hello, Sarah.
Hello, guys. How you doing? Hello.
Welcome back.
Yeah, it's still... Yeah, I agree with Simon. It's too cold, too clinical, and it's far too big. It needs about 6 companions in there.
Good job. There is so much room, because joining us today, just a day after making a special announcement in his role as coordinator of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, we've got Tony Jordan with us. Welcome to Type 40, Tony.
Good evening, all. I've suddenly realised while listening to you that we largely have a West Midlands cabal here, don't we?
We do actually have a West Midlands cabal. Largely, Sarah is the abstainer.
I am.
But yes, because I'm in Staffordshire. Dan, you're in West Midlands. Tony, are you Staffordshire as well?
Yeah, I'm Cannock Chase.
Cannock Chase. You're literally 20 minutes up the road from me. 20 minutes away.
We have different district councils governing us, that's all.
Yeah, different in name, no different in results.
No.
There always has been a strong Doctor Who community, though, in your area, hasn't there?
West Midlands, well, it did seem to be sort of West Midlands, London, and really, I think Manchester as well. Don't you think, Tony? Manchester was always a reasonable
Liverpool and remains an epicentre of fandom, I have to say.
An epicentre.
Yeah, the old Merseyside local group. They were huge, weren't they, back in the day?
Graham Wood,
John
Brand, and a young man called Chris Chibnall was also a member.
Was he in Liverpool? Was Chris Chibnall in the Liverpool group? I probably bumped into him then at some point.
Indeed, you more than likely did. Yeah, I used to go up there quite a lot. So.
Whilst the new TARDIS may be vast and cavernous and impossibly large, it could be that Doctor Who fandom is actually quite a smaller place after all, where everybody knows one another. It would seem. So with all the noisy sort of 60th anniversary stuff out of the way now, Tony, how are you finding it now, looking back on the 60th anniversary? Are you having a bit of a breather? You're glad it's all over?
No, we're pressing forward. I loved the 60th anniversary. And not wishing to plug the Capitol, and I've just been told we only have 2 tickets left to sell, but we are covering those sort of 2 months at the Capitol, we got about 8 or 9 guests who were involved in it. Katie Manning, Tales of the TARDIS. We've got Joshua M.G. Thomas, who directed all 6 of them. Phil Ford, another West Midlands man.
Brilliant.
We've got Katie Manning. We've got Rich Tipple, who was the lead colorizer on the Dalek.
We had Rich on the show.
Friend of the show.
We've got Richard Latto, who did the documentary that launched everything at the end of October. He also did a great radio documentary with Murray Gold, and he's done many other things. We got Fraser Hines, who was also in Tales of the TARDIS. And we have Rochelle Baynard, who was Janice Goblin.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I hope she's coming in cosplay.
Well, my next question was going to be, really, Tony, obviously this is the Doctor Who Appreciation Society that we're talking about. Your title is coordinator. Precisely what does that entail, and what do you coordinate? Is it all those people, all those conventions, and everything else?
The coordinator is a historic title of someone who's sort of the public face of the society and can serve as a rock on which to build things. This is not the first time I've been coordinator. I was coordinator in the mid-1980s.
Were you?
I took over from David Saunders. I was the 3rd ever coordinator.
I remember David Saunders was the coordinator when I joined in '83. So when did you take over from David then?
85.
Oh wow! So absolutely, I was in DWAS when you were taking over then as coordinator.
Yeah. And then Andrew Beach succeeded me. But I mean, I've been back on the. I've done a lot of things, but I moved back onto the DWAS exec. I was persuaded to take on the role of editor of CT in 2007. So I did that for 3 years from 2008. Then I launched us on Facebook and Twitter very late in 2011. There was been a bit of dragging of feet, but that was done. So I sort of ran the social media, got promotions going, and then I came up with the idea of the Capitol in 2015 because the Society would be celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2016. And it was a one-off event, and it's still going. And then I became coordinator again towards the end of last year.
And you're very much kind of the beating heart of DWAS then, and that's not to decry anybody else that does all, because I know DWAS is a massive organisation with loads of other people doing their bit.
There's a lot of good work going on behind the scenes, and people are not as happy to front thing or put their face out there as I am, because I've been around a long time. But there's a lot of good work goes on behind the scenes, like Robbie Dunlop, who brought back TARDIS with those amazing issues he's done. He is now officially social media person, where he's really expanded it. He started us on Instagram 2 or 3 years ago, and we're up to like between 9,000 and 10,000 followers on that. So we continue to diversify in what we do, and I've come on board again as coordinator, and I'm looking to take us through to the 50th anniversary in 2 years' time.
There must have been a lot of challenges throughout the decades along this way then, Tony, as things have evolved, as the way that fans get together have evolved. And if you've solved these problems together as a committee and as friends.
When I was coordinator before, we had over 20 members on the exec. It was absolutely ridiculous. We used to meet once a month. And when I started, the meetings it was normally on a Sunday, and they lasted 6 hours. And I managed to get that down to, exactly. I agree with you, Pat. I managed to get that down to 4 hours, shall we say. But it was ridiculous. And everyone had assistants and this and that.
Wow.
But when I first joined, I didn't realise what I was letting myself in for. We discovered that the society was £8,000 in the red. So I
remember this. I remember the dark days of the deaths.
Well, we spent 18 months turning things around, and I left because I basically worn myself out. For example, what we did do, one of the first things we did was put the membership fee up from £6 to £8. 3,500 members. That made a big difference. We incorporated TARDIS into CT.
Yeah, I remember that.
We planned Panopticon 7 to celebrate 10 years at DWAS. We planned that to within an inch of our lives. And I've always planned conventions ever since that. And we had a break even of 400 attendees, and we had 650. So whoop-de-doo, the society was saved.
So I remember I was at Panopticon 7, and it was just, I still maintain to this day, it was the best convention I've ever been to, just for the sheer the spectacle, the exuberance of everybody there.
The energy was
great. The energy, that's the word I'm looking for.
the highlight was just before the screening of part 1 of Mysterious Planet, wasn't it? When Gordon Roxburgh was up there with KT Steele, who was JNT's production secretary, and there were party poppers and all that. And we had the opening, and we had the amazing space station. And
do you remember everybody applauded? Everybody applauded.
And 24 minutes later, people were like, "Oh no, this isn't that good."
Yeah, but for the first minute, everybody was literally on orange squash and blue Smarties, weren't they? It was the size of the screen that it was projecting. It was a full cinema screen.
15-foot screen at Imperial. Yeah, it was
really.
It's incredible. And to see that spaceship model on that screen with that music, it was just the hairs are standing up on the back of my neck now. I remember it. I can even remember where I was sitting. I remember it like yesterday. Just the most exciting times.
Ecstasy to misery in 24 minutes.
I think you're a little harsh there, Tony.
Not controversial at all.
We staged the first ever UK cabaret as an entertainment.
Yeah.
The Americans, Chicago, they've been doing it for years, and we did it. And I remember Richard Franklin did God rest his soul in drag. I remember Matthew Waterhouse absolutely drunk, singing it quite out of tune like you've never heard before.
Yeah.
John Levine, I think, was probably emceeing it because that's John Levine. It was extraordinary. But we had the one thing. So I will go move on the the Saturday morning? Yes, because Sunday morning was John Pertwee, and then it was JNT towards the end.
Wow.
And so Colin, we had the best ever Peter Davison panel because we had
You're right.
Peter, Sarah Sutton, Janet Fielding, Matthew Waterhouse, Mark Strickson, and Gerald Flood, who played Chameleon.
Yeah.
That's absolutely unique.
Yeah. I remember.
Is that the only time they've all been together in one panel?
Oh, 6 of them. Yeah.
I think I've seen a picture of that panel, but I've never seen any video from it, heard any audio.
It's out on DVD.
Keith, it's on one of Keith Barnfather's time travel TV DVDs.
Definitely, it's out on DVD on a real-time DVD. Nice plug in there, Keith.
Yes, another chunk of my wallet going Keith's way.
Yeah.
Good stuff. But part of the panel is on there. It's definitely worth watching.
Bloody hell. He's got me again. Okay, yes, so we are bonding here over times and spaces past. We'll be getting lots more answers to further questions too on recent developments with DWAS. The questions probably on the tips of your tongues too. But that's right after I remind you that if you'd like to do some real-time traveling of your own, each and every edition of this show, past, present, and future, is just a tap or two away on the device of your choice, but only if you know where to look. There's a proper time stream full of reviews, previews, interviews, geek outs, and deep dives with all our regular panelists and lots more awesome guests. There's something for every fan over at type40.podbean.com. We're going to remind you about all that later on too. It's all good. And of course, we'll be making contact, as always, with that matrix of all knowledge, the Fandom Podcast Network, to hear about all the other shows covering all the other geeky pop culture favourites over there. So, yes, here we are. This is breaking news this week, and there's no time like the present to find out more with Tony here. Yes, Doctor Who fans collectively, it's fair to say, have somewhat of a reputation. For better or worse, none of us are perfect, are we? Individually or collectively, historically, over the last 4.5 decades, Doctor Who fans have achieved some incredible things all together. The Doctor Who Appreciation Society was first formed in the May of 1976, birthed from a smaller college-based fan group and a pre-existing fanzine simply called TARDIS. It was eventually granted an official, though unlicensed status from the series production office. It's survived to this day, though completely independent of the BBC and run by a committee of volunteers who continue to run with that original baton, publishing a cluster of regular publications, staging various events. Any fan of the series can register for membership for an annual subscription fee, and there's even awareness from the not we out there that the Doctor Who Appreciation Society is the closest thing to an official global fan club that it's possible to join up with. There's a bedrock of fans for whom the society, the DWAS, has been a constant of their Doctor Who fandom, I feel, Simon, just as there are the Target books and Doctor Who magazine.
Yeah, absolutely. And as I was saying earlier, it was at the Longleat Convention celebration in 1983. That was when I first became aware of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society, because can't remember, Tony, I don't know whether you can remember, I'm guessing there was a table. I'm assuming you must have had a stall there, a table there with giving out leaflets. In fact, yeah, you did, because I remember buying the 1982 yearbook off that table. That was the first DWAS publication I ever bought.
I was just an ordinary Joe. I wasn't involved in the exec or whatever then. So, yeah. In fact, I tried to join the society in the late 70s, and I got a message back to me that it was full.
Oh, full? How fabulous is that?
So I didn't join until the early 80s. Yeah, I know. I was a bit...
The irony in that is bitter.
Yeah.
But let's say that was the first time I became aware of it, and I took the leaflet home, and literally, obviously, I had joined within a week. You know, I got my parents to write me a check, because how old was I? About 15 at the time.
Doctor Who fans are creatures of habit. I think most of us are nostalgists too, and we like, don't we, for things to remain as they are, and for these cornerstones to still remain where they are. But there are realities to running any publication, any organisation, and times do change, don't they? And this week, Tony, you've published a special announcement. It's really good of you to come along and shed some light on what this means for the society, what your ambitions are for both the short term and the long term. So here we are. This went out on your social medias, didn't it, on the 3rd of March, 2024.
So the society announcement goes as follows. We have recently completed a comprehensive review of Doctor Who Appreciation Society activities with a view to having plans in place to ensure that the society continues to be vibrant, innovative and relevant well beyond its upcoming 50th anniversary in 2026. The world is changing fast and DWAS needs to adapt accordingly.
Despite 2023 being one of our most successful years ever in terms of output, the financial climate we continue to face has proven extremely challenging. Moving forward, we envisage that it will be very difficult continuing to provide members with the same value for money that they have previously enjoyed and expect from us, a fact reinforced by the latest Royal Mail price increase announced on Friday.
As a result, we're going to be making some positive, essential changes to secure our long-term future and also to extend the reach of our services. The following will therefore be implemented. With effect from the 1st of April 2025, DWAS will cease to be a paying membership society. Members can continue to renew up to this date on a pro-rata payment basis. The Society magazine, Celestial Toy Room, will become a quarterly online publication accessible by all at no charge. We know that many current members enjoy a physical publication, and to this end, printed copies will also be available to pre-order and be purchased separately each quarter.
Society events, including conventions and other occasional DWAS publications, will continue as normal. We hope you are as excited as we are about these changes and look forward to having you with us as DWAS nears its golden anniversary.
That's quite a lot to take in, I would imagine, Tony. But first of all, how many DWAS members are there out there, pre-existing members, and what will this mean to them first and foremost? What are the big changes they're going to notice the most?
Membership is between 600 and 700, I think. Back in the mid 80s, it was 3,500. So
wow.
That's a starting point. In the next year, their members will still be receiving their CT, and it won't change. But the key thing is that what was the case in 1976 or 1986 or 2016 is not the case now. Now, I saw something that someone I've known for many years, Matthew Kilburn, who's an academic and a historian and knows what there is to know about Doctor Who fandom. And he said, I quote, "It's the end of an era as a society born in an associative age at the height of trade union power adapts to an individualist and networked world. Now, I couldn't have come up with words so precise and succinct, but that's it. I said that I launched our Facebook and Twitter pages 12 and a half years ago, and we've since developed further with Instagram. We now have approaching 30,000 followers and or subscribers on social media.
Wow.
At the moment, I know, having edited it for 3 years, a huge amount of work goes into CT, and we've been developing where we're going from last year. That is only read by the members, and maybe they pass it on to friends or whatever. What the opportunity we're now giving is that CT will now be available to 30,000 people rather than 600 or 700 people.
Yeah.
Which means that the word can spread, that more people can read it, that the work that contributors put in and our new editor, James Ashworth, puts in, will go to a lot more people. Now, we're not deserting those who are members now. Subscriptions will be available. I think my guess is we'll probably do that in advance through eBay. People can buy it through there. Obviously, we don't know the pricing yet because we don't know what the hell's happening with printing costs and postage. But I'm optimistic that what will happen is there might be a drop-off initially, but once people start reading it online, they'll be encouraged to buy it. And so I think we can expand on all fronts. We need to go forward. This concept has been in discussion on and off for a few years now, and it's sort of been put into the long grass. But the current executive had a debate about it about a month ago, and we all agreed that this is where we need to go. We've been talking about it 2019, maybe 2020.
Do you see this as taking a couple of steps back to take 3 or 4 steps ultimately forward?
No, I don't think it is. I think it's moving positively forward. I just think it's a logical extension. And I say we're not decrying the physical copy. We just have all these followers and subscribers. We have an email mailing list, but that's never actually tied up or dovetailed in with the actual membership list. So we've never had one particular document that says, right, this, that, and the other, that we know everyone who it is.
I applaud you for the whole of the DWAS for making this decision. I think it's a very bold move. It's a very bold and audacious thing to do, but I think it's an absolutely fantastic thing to do. I'll be honest, when this announcement first came up, as you say, on the 3rd, the first little bit that I read, I was thinking, oh, DWAS are closing, they're packing in. You know, it reads, to begin with, you think with a sinking heart, I'm thinking, oh no, this is a nail in the coffin that DWAS are going. Then, of course, I'm carrying on reading and I'm thinking, wow, no, this is, from me personally, I think it's really, really exciting. As I've said before, I used to be a member and get CT every month and found it really exciting. And over the years, my membership just lapsed. And then I started again, and then it lapsed again. And so at the moment, I know I'm not a member. So 100%, I will be obviously bang on board for this and getting my free digital copy of CT once a quarter. And I'll be reading CT again in the way that I haven't done for a few years now. So from my point of view, it's a win-win. And that's exactly what you want people to do, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And the thing is, Simon, what you've said, your personal experience, is widespread. People join and then their membership lapses and then they rejoin. And the amount of work involved in trying to get people to rejoin, and until fairly recently, it's been by post.
Yeah.
It is labor intensive, and you always get some drop-offs and you get some new ones. But what you've said you've actually done is what an awful lot of people do. And there comes a time when it's just not cost effective.
Particularly if you're pursuing them via those tried and tested but decades old now methods through the Royal Mail system. And as you say, with postage and things like that going up, and people's time being taken up too, I can see entirely why you've come to this position.
We also have, in the past, if people have paid for a year, and obviously until recently it was 10 a year. I mean, when I did it, it was 10 a year. You have a double issue in the summer, a double issue at Christmas and New Year. But we would tend to give people an extra issue to try and encourage them to renew. Right. So again, there's an additional cost that you're not getting the membership fee to cover that 11th issue. 13th or whatever, So it is difficult. We've started the change, and there's been no complaints about it. Last autumn, where we advertised for a new CT editor. It's getting on for a year ago, and I was delighted with the quality of candidates who applied. I think there were 5, and quite frankly, any one of them would have done a good job. We chose James Ashworth, who, I don't know if you know, did the Tides of Time for the Oxford Doctor Who fan club, and I think that's his template. But his first, we had a situation last year where we had guest editors, so I edited, I think it was the May or June, the June issue, which I just basically reviewed the capital and got people to write about it. But when he came on board, his first proper issue was September, and then we'd already announced that CT was going to go quarterly. Why go quarterly? Because it's getting more and more difficult to get 10 issues a year out. There have been times when CT has fallen, and this used to happen in the 80s, and it happened in the noughties. When I took over, it was about 4 months behind. So I actually got 36 issues out in 32 or 33 months. But it's so difficult to do it with a quarterly magazine. And because ever since the internet came out, we're not producing news. CT used to be the place to go to for news about what was happening. The production office would say you would tell you this, that, and the other. There we are, Nick Mallett and Kerrigan, directors for season 26, and all these things. It's Carry On Doctor. James Sims has been cast in Mysterious Planet.
Yes,
I was coordinator for that one. The all-new Celestial Toy Room incorporating TARDIS, just well as said.
I couldn't wait for it to arrive because it was the only way I was going to get news, because it was always generally ahead of the monthly at that point. And so it was the main route for me to get news about the new series, which obviously I was so excited about getting. But as you say, the world has changed and everybody gets their news off the internet way before you can have printed it in CT. So the nature of the beast has changed, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I think we've developed CT rather well over the years. It's full colour now and has been for 3 or 4 years. And I think that's a great development. When I was editor, I think I was allowed, out of the 10 issues, probably 3 colour covers a year, and the rest was black and white, and it was all black and white inside. So even in 15 years, we've pushed forward. So we are developing CT as best we can, and I think as a quarterly publication, I think it's just doing a much better job, quite frankly. You sometimes in the past there's been situations where whoever's editing has been scrabbling around to find things, and you've put out a pretty awful 16-page issue. CT is like everything in life. The DWAS are like everything in life. It goes through its good times and its bad times, just like Doctor Who. Doctor Who's had so many highs and lows, and the Society's had so many highs and lows. And what we're trying to do is to get the steps in place so that when we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Society in 2026, we know exactly what we're doing, where we're going, and we can really, we've got so many more people on board. And I'm hoping we will. I hope we'll be up to 35,000, 40,000 followers and subscribers by then, because word should get out that you can download this really fantastic magazine.
When one is a fan of something, fanatical about something, you eat, sleep and drink it, Sarah, you want to express that love, whether it's wearing a T-shirt, buying a model, sticking a sticker on the car that says, my other car is a TARDIS, that kind of thing. But to be fair, another way of doing that is having the membership card for the next to official Doctor Who Appreciation Society in your wallet, in your purse, on the dash of your car. There's something to that. There's something there with that. But you can understand why, can't you? That a lot of attention would go onto something like CT.
Oh, look at that!
Membership card.
Brilliant. Look at that. That's a bit different to the one I had in my day.
Yeah, well, they've changed. I do appreciate that in many ways. the physicality of the membership card is probably perhaps the biggest thing that people are unhappy about. And there's nothing I can do to sort of make people happy about that. It's part and parcel of it. Anyhow, for now, people can keep the membership cards that they've got now and keep them on them. We feel. I mean, I'm coming up 65, so I should be a bit of an old dinosaur. But I want to see us progress. I think we just keeping things the same because that's what they've been in the past is not.
Tony, people like to have something tangible, don't they? Whether it be a membership card or whether it be a physical magazine, however many you can manage to bang out in a period of time. They like something they can touch and turn the pages of. As people come along, successive generations, or the way that people read and consume this material is changing, then you're going to have a lot of people who aren't going to mind the idea of a digital copy. You're going to embrace that. But obviously there are going to be people, they're going to be either completists, there could be completists, but there are going to be people too who still prefer to literally flick through the pages, Sarah. So it's nice, isn't it, that this is offering that option to still have a paper copy should you prefer.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the best of both worlds. And I think you're absolutely right, Tony, in opening it up, because the internet has made all this possible. You know, a lot of fans do consume digital content. And, you know, the younger generation that came up with knew how this is all they know, the digital copies, you know, digital copies of Doctor Who magazine, Big Finish doing the downloads. And so, I mean, it's not my thing because I like physical copies. But yeah, but there is a huge section of fans that do consume this. So I think this will really open it out, and there will be people who really enjoy these digital copies. And yeah, I do think it will get more fans in.
I got a figure recently. More than 80% of Big Finish sales are now digital downloads.
Wow.
I've still got all my favourite ones from the early days, Lanyon Moore, Dalek, all those ones. Yeah. With modern internet speeds, it takes you 2 minutes to download it.
It does, yeah.
The world has changed. But I mean, the thing is, you know, for example, in the past, I because although I'm not a member of DWAS at the moment, I've always followed it on Facebook, and I'm on the newsletter and all that kind of stuff, on the email newsletter and stuff. And so I'll often get through the notification of what's in CT this month. And there's been many times I thought, I'd love that copy of CT, but I can't get it. That's it. I'm stuffed. I cannot get that copy. Yeah. Whereas this way, I guarantee there will be copies of CT I will now buy on an ad hoc basis. Doctor Who magazine is exactly the same. I haven't been a subscriber of that for years, for the same reason that Doctor Who is such, in a way, as you say, Tony, it's had so many highs and lows. It's changed so many times. It's a monster in many ways. And so there's lots of it that you love and there's lots of it that you don't love. And so I wouldn't want to subscribe to something that I'm going to pay a lot of money for, that a lot of the stuff I won't be interested in reading because that's just not my era of Doctor Who. And so to be able to pick and choose like this, I just think you're right, Sarah. It's the best of both worlds, because I guarantee I will go and get copies of CT when it's got the stuff in that I'm interested in reading, which I couldn't do before.
I'm optimistic that once people, the 30,000 or whatever, start downloading the issue, then they'll be looking to pre-order the next issue because they've enjoyed it so much. I don't think we'll be able to retrospectively have copies for sale. The theory is good, and we've got 13 months to go. The theory is that it will be on pre-order. We'll be finalizing it later in the year, so we know what we want to do. The little nooks and crannies we'll yet discover, but yes, it's got to be. I just think it's got to be good. I can't say it too many times.
I would say if it's going to be on something like pre-order, I would say the key there is to letting people know in advance what's going to be in that issue, because that's where I will be the one that will say, yep, I'll have that one. Thank you very much. I can see what's coming up. I'm going to be getting that one. And I'd like to bet, Sarah, I'm going to put you on the spot now. And I don't know the answer to this, but I'm guessing you've never been a member of DWAS in your life.
No.
No, I didn't think you would have been. But will you be reading CT now when it comes out digitally?
Yeah, absolutely.
I haven't been a member for years either, but I absolutely will as well. But I had wondered, Tony, hearing you speak about it like that, is it partly because as well, you've had some success with a similar model, haven't you, with the relaunch of TARDIS a few years ago?
TARDIS was purely a hard copy magazine. Robbie Dunlop worked his socks off. There have been 5 issues over a period of about 4 years. It is just, the quality of it is unbelievable. The word count is unbelievable. So TARDIS has purely been physical copy. Cosmic Mask, which we relaunched, I think it was for the Society's 40th anniversary in 2016, that has been downloadable, although I think we did 1 or 2 physical editions. And that has largely, that's largely been the fan fiction front. We're looking at what we want to do with that for the future, because if we're going to have 1 downloadable magazine, then we'll have to see. But TARDIS has come and gone over time, so there's plenty of different magazines. But the focus right now is CT. And one thing I would say, Simon, one of the pluses of it being quarterly, of course, if you're doing 10 issues a year, trying to say, right, this is going to be in the next issue, you've got no time to plan it really.
Correct.
To let people know. I have no doubt. I mean, when I was editing it, I used to have a spreadsheet that had the next 4 months planned out and who would write what. That hasn't always been the case. I have no doubt that James has got the issues that's coming out this month well and truly planned. And if it were the case that this was going to be going on pre-order, we'd have been able to put the contents, or most of the contents, up in January.
Yeah.
The reason why I mentioned TARDIS was because this was available, wasn't it, to people who weren't members of the Appreciation Society. You could buy this through eBay and various other places. So it sounds like you've taken part of what worked on TARDIS, part of what seems to be working for you with Cosmic Mask, and applying it now to CT and moving that back to the centre of the Appreciation Society.
Yeah. It just seems to me we just had to. It had to be done. We couldn't carry on and on doing the same.
I'll tell you the other reason why I think it is an absolutely brilliant move is because it's suddenly the DWAS is just totally inclusive to everybody and to all of fandom. I'm sure you will remember, Tony, that in the past DWAS has been sort of accused of elitism and it's only for real true diehard fans, and if you're not a diehard fan enough, you can't come in. And this just throws all of this away and says anybody, Doctor Who is for anybody and everybody, and that's why I think it's brilliant. And I love to think that DWAS would be at the centre of kind of bringing fandom back together, because fandom is fractured to an extent at the moment. It is disparate, and I'd love to think that DWAS is just there at the centre of it to pull it all back together, because it's available to everybody. I love the idea. I think it's brilliant. It's just such a good reinvention for the society.
That's very kind of you to say so, Simon. In my long experience, and probably in yours as well, Simon, fandom has nearly always been fractured.
100%. Totally. But nothing's been there to bring it together in the past. Do you know what I mean? Nothing's been there.
I do.
And that's why I think this is just an excellent... this is a real game changer in Doctor Who fandom, full stop. We've never had anything like this before. It's almost the equivalent of Doctor Who magazine suddenly saying we're just going to go free. We're just going to be available for download only for free, and you can buy your copy if you want to, but you'll get a free copy if you don't. And that would obviously never happen, quite understandably. They couldn't do that. But DWAS can, and so good on you for doing it. It's brilliant.
Thank you. DWAS isn't just CT or TARDIS or whatever. We did 6 conventions last year. And we had the Patrick Troughton Blue plaque unveiling.
Yeah.
The society has never, ever been so busy or proactive in events. And we have this partnership with Riverside Studios, where later this month we have the 40th anniversary screening of Caves of Androzani. And it's got Peter Davison and Nicola Bryant, Graham Harper, Eric Saywood, Martin Cochrane as well. That sold out in 4 hours.
Of course it did.
Wow.
That's the second event. 4 hours. 4 hours. Yes, Dan. We did an event in January, which was at the encore screening of An Adventure in Space and Time. The first one we did was the day after the Star Beast, and David Bradley was there for that, and that sold out. And then we did the encore event. We thought, oh, no one's going to come to it. And then we got Sacha Darwin, and there were like 10 empty seats. That was all it was.
Fantastic.
So the society's always had a convention department, It's had some fun. Oh, there we go. Brilliant.
So at a recent event at Riverside Studios, you presented Waris Hussein, didn't you, with an outstanding contribution award to Doctor Who?
Yes, absolutely. He directed 10 of the first 20 episodes. He was heavily involved in the research for Mark Gatiss' script for An Adventure in Space and Time. The contribution he made alongside Verity Lambert and Sidney Newman was immense, and without his work, as I said at the time, we would not have been there at Riverside Studios in January. Unfortunately, we never had a chance to present Sidney with an award. Verity has her blue plaque at Riverside. It was only appropriate that we presented Waris with that award at that location.
The look on his face, and you can see how proud Sasha is to be there presenting him with it as well. But these occasions, these events, these ideas, these celebrations of people and places, I feel that this is the right step for the society as well moving forward.
Colleague and good friend Dave Greenham, he's the man for the Riverside events, and he's the man for the blue plaques, and he works incredibly hard on these, and I know he has ideas for other blue plaques. It's not a straightforward thing. First of all, you have to find someone with the gravitas to warrant it, shall we say, in a general sense. Then you have to find a family that supports it happening, and then you have to find a suitable location. I think I can tell you, because I don't think it's going to happen. We tried some years ago to find somewhere for a JNT plaque.
Oh, I'd love that to happen.
But I have to tell you, it came to no fruition. And quite frankly,
No.
Brighton has the JNT bus, and maybe that's better. It may yet happen, but Dave is looking at other things. But just going back to Riverside, we had a great relationship with Riverside going back many, many years to the noughties, the old building, and that's the original Verity plaque was unveiled there shortly before it closed in 2014 for the demolition and the building of the new one. In fact, when we re-unveiled the plaque, Waris said some words and Stephen Moffat said some words, and then I was asked to say some in at the reception afterwards, and I did say that in fact Verity had been in my summer house for 3 years. Not that I kidnapped her, but the plaque was secure in the summer house down the bottom of my garden. It's the truth. It's the truth. But these Riverside, we had this relationship, and then it closed. And then anyhow, the relationship started getting rebuilt, and they were really keen. As we'd done it, we did the Terence Dicks celebration event there, for example, and we'd had the Verity plaque. So they were keen to celebrate Doctor Who, looking at the 80 odd episodes that were made at the original Riverside, and we had 4 events with that, and it was just absolutely fantastic, and some great people. I had the pleasure of interviewing Maureen O'Brien and Peter Purvis at the first one. I was made up at that. I really was. But now we've got, and then they wanted Adventure, Space and Time, and now that they are keen to develop the relationship further, realizing that we've sort of drained the well dry there, but there's another 800 and something episodes. So that's why we're celebrating 40 years of Caves of Androzani. So hopefully that will continue going forward. And the great thing about those events is that you get a screening. You get 2 episodes or 4 episodes. You get 1 or 2 question and answers, and it costs you 15 quid. You don't have to get a photograph. You don't have to get an autograph. It's just the best value out there.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's chalk and cheese to the Capitol, because obviously the Capitol is basically a residential event, and you can't, these people get autographs included and all that stuff. So they are very, very different things. So I like to think we are covering all bases basically in terms of conventions. I say we've never, ever been so busy on that front, and I think it's great, and people seem to be loving them.
Well, those screenings, they are very sort of niche, aren't they? They're very bespoke. They're real. They're just really nice little focused down events. Whereas you should say the Capitol is more of a celebration, isn't it?
this year at the Capitol, we go from the very first episode, because Carol Ann Ford is a guest, so obviously she was in An Unearthly Child, right through, as I was saying earlier, to Rochelle Baynard, who was in The Church on Ruby Road. So we've covered 61 years.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm happy.
You can't knock that.
No.
Obviously, modern fan bases in the age of Comic Con and Hall H and all these enormous events that are held at various huge venues all over the world, where people line up in cosplay. The lines are like 3 or 4 hours long to go and get things signed and have pictures taken with. It's all changed so much, hasn't it, in the last decade and a half in particular. So the fan experience has evolved too. I think with the way that you're rethinking the society and what you can offer both in the online world and in real life, places that people can go, experiences they can have, people they can meet if they wish, but also those opportunities for connectivity. I think that speaks to what you were saying earlier on, Simon. Not just about how divided this fandom is, maybe always has been, but also about the things that actually do unite us at the core.
Correct.
Well, yeah, because the convention and things isn't always just seeing the celebrities or it is about meeting other fans. It's that community 100%. Element.
LobbyCon, it's called, and it's a massive part of the Capitol. It absolutely is. Some people, they pay for their tickets, they don't bother with photos. Some people don't bother with autographs. Some people go for everything. But I remember when we held the Capitol 2 years ago, it was the first weekend of April, and the COVID restrictions had only been lifted a few weeks before. And we provided masks and this and that, and people really didn't bother. When I went on stage, I had a mask on, but there was this outpouring of joy that after more than 2 years, we could be together and celebrate and just have a bloody good time. Yeah. And I think at that weekend, we had, I think the footfall was 315 people. And I think no more than a handful got COVID, which actually was amazing, really. People were fairly sensible, but it was a very joyous weekend where we were all back together doing what we like doing.
We've heard about what the changes mentioned in this special announcement will mean for existing members of DWAS, but what is the signal? What's the message that you want to send to people who are either lapsed members, people who've never been remotely interested in the idea of joining the Appreciation Society, or even, Tony, the people out there who've never even heard of the Appreciation Society? How are you going about reaching them?
Well, it's difficult if people... I tell you what, in the last 15 years, the number of times I've heard, I didn't realise DWAS was still going, but that has reduced considerably in the last decade. It was more a case maybe 20 years ago. But we can but hope that by CT going online, the word will get out further. More and more people will subscribe or follow us on social media, and therefore a certain number of them will be drawn in and will want to have the physical copy. So the aim is that we'll actually end up printing more physical copies. I have to tell you one thing: cost has been a factor in this. The membership fee was £22 for far too long. It didn't go up to meet the ever increasing costs. It did go up to £26, but it should have been £26 several years ago. It should probably be £30 or more nowadays. Royal Mail trying to get large letters, the price of them is ridiculous.
Certainly everybody that I've spoken to so far, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. I haven't heard a single negative. In fact, quite the opposite. I'm hearing everybody really admiring you for doing this, admiring DWAS for doing this. What has the reaction been from your end? What have you sort of got?
Largely positive. There has been, it's basically on Facebook, people have been moaning and complaining. I do find it difficult when people don't even read the announcement. So people saying, you're going online only. But it's like, just read the announcement. We're not going online only. And people questioning, why are we getting rid of membership? Well, we have explained it. And I've spent quite a lot of time replying to comments made. It took a day or two, probably a day, for the positive comments to come through. It's just the likes were enormous. but it was the complaints about it were there.
But
But
this is the thing with social media. It's always the reactionary, first.
You know, if people have been members for years and they're really disappointed and they don't, I'm just terribly sorry. But as I've said to you before, things can't always stay the same. In fact, I tell you what, it's probably 20 years since CT always used to be A4 size.
Yeah.
And about 20 years ago, it went to A5, and people weren't happy with that. But that's because by then the Royal Mail had brought in large letters, and an A4 document didn't fit in that. So therefore, the price of it postage was going to go through the roof. So it became A5. That was a big change. But it had to be because of circumstances.
But we're Doctor Who fans, Tony. We wouldn't be happy if we weren't moaning. That's the truth of it.
We're really not trying to upset anyone. And I'm sorry if people are upset that they won't be able to be members for more than another year. I just refer to what Matthew Kilburn said. You know, in 2024, to compare, and we were both alive then, Simon, and we were not little babies. So we live our lives very differently.
It's all very true. And I guess the truth of it is, if you hadn't made this change, it might be that in another 5 years' time, DWAS wouldn't exist at all, because you just simply might not have been able to continue functioning. And so I would hope that people would go away and think about that from the point of view, okay, they might have lost their membership and all the rest of it, but you would hope that they would realize that actually they are ultimately going to be better off. It amazes me that anybody can think that they're not going to be better off with this move, but there we go.
As ever with things, we are all volunteers.
Yeah,
we do it all in our spare time.
Yeah,
it probably costs us money rather than making us any money. It's incredibly time consuming. And we do it for the love of the society and for the love of Doctor Who. We're trying to do our very best for both.
I'm sure I remember a time back in the days of the classic show where little cards would appear after Doctor Who episodes on television where there was an acceptance, an endorsement and a promotion of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society. By the BBC themselves, by the show, on the mainstream channel, on BBC One, in prime time. I mean, is this something that is completely unfeasible, impossible now? Or because it would be nice if they could throw you a lifeline, wouldn't it?
No, since it came back in 2005, Russell T Davies made it clear that there was no official fan society or anything like that. He had no interest in it, so that was that. Yes, I've got a Radio Times from. Well, it would have been Trial of a Time Lord, where they were promoting the return of the programme. But at the bottom of it had my name as coordinator and my home address in Radio Times.
Wow. Those are the days.
Those were the days. And yes, so that's what happened. So however many million copies of Radio Times were sold in 1986 had my name and address in it.
I'm just baffled by Russell's decision that
seems blinkered,
you've got
doesn't
this
it?
influx of new fans coming in. You'd have thought,
maybe he believed that was a barrier. Maybe he believed that was a hint of elitism, Simon, that you were talking about. Maybe if going back the best part of 20 years, perhaps he was of that mind then. It's hard to say, isn't it?
Well, also, it might just be that he was in a difficult political position at that point. The show was coming back, etc., etc. Who knows what was going on behind the scenes? I think it's a shame that he had to do that, but I kind of get probably why he did, because again, the world had changed.
They had bigger license holders as well, the likes of Big Finish by then.
I think part of the problem with Doctor Who fandom, as I say, we partly we love to moan, and secondly, we're very, very, very passionate about Doctor Who. It's just as simple as that. It's far more. It always annoys me. I've said this before, but it annoys me when people say it's just a TV show. It really isn't just a TV show. I get so angry when people say that, because it's a lifestyle for me. It's part of my life, part of my DNA. Same for you, Tony. Same for all of us here. It's not just a TV show, and so we feel very, very passionately about it. And anything you feel passionately about, passions run high. It's as simple as that.
Yes, they do.
And feelings run high. That's part of the beast. There's nothing you can do about it. We're all never going to agree about the same things. We're all going to have different opinions because we feel strongly about them. But I'd say that's one.
Sorry, I was saying, let me throw something at you guys. Your favourite classic Doctor Who series, Dan?
You mean story or season?
No, story.
Favourite classic Doctor Who story?
Just top of head. Come on, I'm really putting you on the spot now. And let's see what the answers are.
I know what I can say.
I know what Simon's is going to be.
Mine is going to be, with reservation, the Talons of Wen Chiang.
Cool. Okay.
Nearly the Robots of Death.
Yeah.
Nearly the Robots of Death, but no, Talons wins it for me.
Okay, Sarah.
I want to say Pyramids of Mars.
Pyramids. Hello, two for Tom. Yeah, Tom and Graham Williams. Yeah, Dan.
What else? It has to be Delta and the Bannermen.
Oh,
No.
Dan!
He doesn't mean that.
He's not kidding, Tone. He's not kidding.
It's by far and away the best story of season 24. But
very diplomatic. Come on then, Tony. What's yours?
Oh, Seeds of Doom. Absolutely.
Oh, I love the Seeds of Doom.
There's three of us going for season 13 or 14. And there's Mr. Out in Left Field. Here's to the future, Dan. Love is the answer.
Exactly. We've got Ken Dodd. We've got a coach ride. We've got a holiday camp. We've got Bonnie Langford's legs. We've got the little alien baby from V. I don't really think I need to say any more.
No, I think it's probably best if you don't.
We've got shots that are all cut at the knees because they're all going round in Wellington boots because it was so wet in Barry Island and everything like that.
Don't spoil the magic, Tony. Don't spoil the magic.
That shows the difference of opinion, doesn't it?
Yeah,
there you go.
I entirely understand why Dan has said Delta and the Bannermen if he's being honest about it.
And he's genuinely being honest. The other one he loves, and I've never understood, is Nightmare of Eden. I still can't get how you love Nightmare of Eden.
Another conversation.
You don't have to explain it. That's the point.
No,
that's the point.
We love you anyway. That's the beauty of this fandom.
Yeah. We ask and answer the toughest questions regularly here at Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. Of course we do. On this edition of the show, we've been looking at this special announcement from Tony Jordan and everybody else who works so tirelessly and so creatively on the very threshold of this exciting new development, this new evolution, which is going to play out over the next 18 months. As I'm sure you can gather by our reception here, Tony, we're very much in your corner. We're going to be there supporting everything that you guys are doing there. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how it plays out by the time that the Society reaches that 50th anniversary.
Yeah, you've got to come back. You've got to come back, Tony.
Yes.
we have to get our plans together so we celebrate the 50th anniversary properly. I've got one or two ideas. But this is the thing. We've got time to plan it now. We're planning ahead. It's a bit like the government planning a tax cut in 3 or 4 years' time. We're planning ahead.
Time and space to plan ahead. Time and space now to remind you of all the other conversations going on across the other shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Fortunately for me, I don't have to keep it all in my head. Kevin's along right now to remind you about everything else that you can catch up on over there. Take it away, Kevin. Get me out of this one.
Thank you for listening. We hope you're enjoying this podcast. Here are the other great shows on the Fandom Podcast Network. Culture Clash, where we discuss the latest in entertainment and pop culture. Blooded Kings, our show covering the entire Highlander universe. Couch Potato Theater, we celebrate our favorite movies. And Time Warp, our fandom flashback show discussing a year in movies and our favorite retro movie, TV, and pop culture topics. Good Evening, discussing all things Alfred Hitchcock. Hair Metal Podcast, we cover the rock metal music of the 80s and early 90s. Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast, discussing the time-traveling Doctor Who universe. Lethal Mullet, an action film podcast covering the 80s, 90s, and beyond. Also, check out the Lethal Mullet Network for more great podcasts. What a Piece of Junk, our Star Wars podcast. Making Treks, a Star Trek podcast with a deep dive into the final frontier. The Fandom Show, our Fandom Podcast Network live YouTube show discussing the hottest topics in fandom. The True Believers MCU podcast discussing the Marvel Cinematic and Television Universe. Union Federation, our Star Trek and the Orville show. And we're proud to welcome the BQN Network to the Fandom Podcast Network. please visit our friends on the VQN Network, a Star Trek Universe podcast that also includes your favorite topics, movies, history, superheroes, and more. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on YouTube. The Fandom Podcast Network is also on all major podcast platforms. The Fandom Podcast Network audio master feed is on Podbean at fpnet.podbean.com. You can find the Fandom Podcast Network on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can email us at fandompodcastnetwork@gmail.com. Thank you so much for listening, and remember, respect others and enjoy your fandom.
Yes, we've teased and tantalized you again there, and we can even clothe you too. There's merch to match all of those shows, including Type 40. Just head over to teepublic.com, search for the Fandom Podcast Network, and that's where you'll find a store full of all the team colours for all of the podcasts, on everything from T-shirts and phone cases up to enormous tapestries. Seeing is believing. Treat yourself, treat your other selves. All goes to support the Fandom Podcast Network into the bargain too, so everybody wins. We're still here. We've still got Tony Jordan here, Mr. DWAS, no less. We've just heard all the exciting details on the evolution of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society in time for its own 50th anniversary, and all the details of the publications and the conventions there that are filling up the calendars of discerning Doctor Who fans. You've got one on the starting grid too, haven't you, Tony? The Capital is weeks away.
It is. As I said earlier, there's two. A message popped up on my screen that said there are 2 tickets left now. So maybe they'll have been sold by the time this goes out.
No, I feel sure they will have been. Is everything all in place? Are you all? Is it all panic stations behind the scenes, or is everything calm and you're all organised?
That's for me to know and you to guess.
Brilliant.
I like your style. Yes, I've been keeping an eye on the various guests that have been announced, all the creative people that are going to be there too, flogging their wares and promoting as ever. It does look like it's going to be very, very exciting, and it's a great location too, isn't it? Outside of Birmingham city centre, but easy to get to by rail and by road.
It's really spooky, you know. It's literally just down the road, literally 1 minute's drive down the road from where I used to hold the monthly meetings of my DWAS local group. So there you go.
Richard Price, who's one of our guests, he contacted me and said, "Look, I literally live just up the road. Can I please come?" And I thought, anyhow, I said yes. And he's great for promoting it as well. He's been in 16 episodes, I think. He's been various monsters and this and that. So he should be a good crack. I do like the monster guys. We've had John Davey 2 or 3 times, and we've had Clemso and various others over the years. Richard Ashton, who was the giant ice warrior in Empress of Mars. So you can't beat a monster man.
But if people want to keep abreast of all your conventions, all your events, the publications, and these evolutions to the society, they can find out about all of it ahead of time, can't they? And maybe get the first March on tickets for the next event by heading over to your website.
Go to dwasonline.co.uk, click on the links. They're not dodgy. They're good.
Because obviously this is a lot to take in as well for people, especially those who've never heard of the society, never been members, but there is clear explanations here, aren't there, about how the society works, how people can join, the expectations, what they'll get in return, as well as some of the history of the society too. It's all there on your website, isn't it?
I'm very impressed that our webmaster has already put up that paid membership will stop from 1st of April 2025. Well done, Barry. That's a great.
There you go.
Nice work, Barry.
Teamwork, you see, teamwork. That's what it's all about.
Well-oiled machine.
You might think so. I couldn't possibly comment. It is what it is. We try our best.
You certainly do, and as I say, we're all applauding here. So good on you for doing it.
So that's the Capital 7 Wonders on Saturday the 27th and Sunday the 28th of April 2024 at the Holiday Inn Birmingham, just off the M6 at Junction 7. That's where it's all happening by the sounds of it for the lucky people who've already got their tickets secured. That is the old girl starting up and calling time on another edition of Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. Next one is on the way Of course it is. Look out for that wherever you found this. It could have been over at the dedicated home feed for Type 40. That's at type40.podbean.com. Maybe we rolled up on the podcatcher of your choice. Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, iHeart Radio, TuneIn, Google Play, Podbean, all those places. In fact, it would be easier to tell you all the places you couldn't get Type 40, a Doctor Who podcast. We're also on YouTube, the world's largest streaming platform, on the Type 40 channel, with extended video editions of each and every show now. Subscribe to Type 40 Doctor Who on YouTube for those exclusive extra Type 40s and our sister show, that weekly live stream magazine show, Type 40 Live, completely raw, completely live, where anything can happen, anything can be said, and often is. So get all of that at Type 40 on YouTube. We're still on the fabulous Fandom Podcast Network's master feed, loaded up with so many treats for your ears. Never mind on the weekly, it's coming at you on the daily there, so please consider a trip sideways in time for more quality shows from the FPN. Maybe you'd like to have your say about all of this. You can do that too if you could reach out to us through our social media, Instagram and X, at Type 40 Doctor Who, or you can email us, type40doctorwho@outlook.com. There's always the Type 40 Facebook group to meet the masses of new companions and doctors who've joined our long-standing community there on Facebook. There's still a while until the Doctor and Ruby continue their travels. We'll help one another through together in the Type 40 Facebook group. Genuinely, Tony, thank you so much for your company on this edition of the show. Where can people find DWAS across social medias? Which platforms do you do? And what's the easiest way to get in touch should they have any further questions?
I would go to our website, dwasonline.co.uk. There you can click on the links to Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube. And YouTube's got some great videos on it from the noughties and until actually pretty recently. There's some fantastic panels on there, which I would suggest people watch. Full panels from the Capitol over the years. There are some belters up there, trust me. Yeah,
I can vouch for it because I've watched a load of them. So yeah, highly recommended.
So that's the Doctor Who Appreciation Society there. A whole YouTube channel's worth of panels and special items to discover. Go and subscribe and see what it's all about. Where can people find you nowadays, Sarah, on social media?
You can find me over on X at Starry-Eyed Who. And I'm also on Facebook with Sarah Louise Graham. Yeah, please get in touch. And Tony, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you.
Thank you, Sarah.
You've turned me into a member. You really have.
You've only got a year left.
Better late than never.
And how about you, Simon? Where can people get in touch with you on social media?
People can only get in touch with me on Facebook because I can't be bothered with any of the rest of the ones. So you'll find me there under the Hoonatics. If you look at Doctor Who, the Hoonatics, and I'm the admin on that. So go and say hello there. And again, likewise, to echo what Sarah said, thank you so much, Tony. It's been a pleasure. And you can find me on Instagram and X as the Spacebook. I'm wheezing and groaning, ranting and raving about all things geeky, inside and outside of the TARDIS, in TV, movies, comic books, and all manner of other geeky pursuits. Now and again, I even talk about my real life. I do have a real life, as hard as it is to believe. Yes, please come back and tell us some more, Tony, in due course. We're all made up for DWAS. Can't wait to see the 50th anniversary of the Doctor Who Appreciation Society. Generally speaking, the positive reception just goes to show how much goodwill there is out there for DWAS, something that a lot of us have grown up with, even if we've not always been members of. The doors are wide open, and I think the future's pretty bright.
Thank you.
As ever, thanks to you for listening. We always have the time if you have the space here at Type 40. Take care. Speak soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.